Okay. Call this regular city council meeting to order, 1800 hours, May 12th, 2022. First item of business is called to order. We did, and roll call. Everybody is in the chambers. All council members present. Pledge of allegiance and invocation. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with the City Council meeting. Father, we just ask you to put your hands up on each and every agenda, Lord God, and council members and the people that are here. Father, we just ask you also to put your hands up on each and every individual, the spoken and the unspoken prayer requests, Lord God. Father, be with all the law enforcement officers, Lord God, the families of the fallen officers that are in Washington being escorted into D.C. right now, Lord. Be with all of them. Father, be with all the first responders, and Lord, and everyone else. And we just give you all honor and glory and praise. To your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Chair will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I so move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or questions on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion passes. Number 5, call to the public for non-agenda items. We do have one presentation. Chief, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First off, thanks again for the barbecue today. It was great. We greatly appreciate that. So I'm here today to present an award to one of our officers, and I'll just kind of read what happened. On Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, Officer Alvarado responded to a report of a 3-week-old infant who was unresponsive. Resuscitation efforts by the parents were unsuccessful. When Officer Alvarado arrived, he was given a lifeless child. He immediately began life-saving efforts. After checking for signs of life, he administered 4 blows to the child's back, the final blow dislodging whatever was blocking the child's airway. He then gave the baby to EMS to be checked. I spoke to the family, who is also here tonight, and they felt that Officer Alvarado's involvement was, they felt that his actions were directly related to reviving the child. And as such, we are presenting him with a life-saving award tonight. And I believe one of the parents wanted to say something, if that's okay.
You're more than welcome.
Hi, so I'm Sierra Anaya. I grew up as Sierra Brown here in Holbrook. I had family on the police force all growing up, and I never thought I would need to call them and need their help for something. It was the scariest moment of my life, having my 3-week-old unresponsive, and even though I had first aid training, when it's your own baby, you don't know what to do, and I completely panicked. But the second Officer Alvarado walked in the house, it was like a sigh of relief. Like, I just immediately handed our baby over to him, and within seconds, our baby was breathing again, and it was like just the best feeling in the world. And so I was just very thankful to have a police force here in Holbrook that we could call to help us. So we were just really grateful for you being there helping our baby.
Wonderful, thank you, Sierra.
So I'd like to call Officer Alvarado up to present this to him, and something you might find of interest is that same day we all attended first aid training.
Oh.
So. I'll let you, so here's the certificate, and the certificate comes with a medal. If you want to hold that at all. This is the medal. The pin can be worn on their Class A uniform.
Stay there just a second, one more. I'm running behind. Thank you.
It's an honor to have quality officers working for us, so thank you.
Okay, moving on to call to the public for items on the agenda. Have none. Item 7, new business discussion and possible action. Clenera LLC, Snowflake Solar LLC, request for a transmission line easement on city-owned property. We have a representative from Clenera, Jared, correct? Jared McKee. So I'll turn the floor over to you at this time, sir.
I was really hoping I didn't have to follow that. Because it doesn't get any better than that.
No.
That was, I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and so there's a little bit, I get a little bit emotional about that.
It's close to home.
It does. Well, I'm here today to talk to you about a transmission easement, but what I want to make sure I do is I talk about the opportunity that's in its entirety, and also the specific request, or I guess the ask that Snowflake Solar and Clenera is making. But I did want to provide a little background, and you can tell me how much background you want me to provide or how little. You know, I have a presentation, but I also don't want to bore you to death with a lot of things that you already know. And so my plan today was to talk a little bit about Clenera and Snowflake and the company that we are, just so you have a little bit of background about what we're doing, and then get into the specific request and the specific project that we are building north of Holbrook. Will that work for the council? Okay.
One thing to remember is that we have video audience too, so people are also watching us. Not to aim you, but in terms of
Yes.
your audience is not just us.
Yes, I will swivel. So, all right. So I'm going to move forward. So about Clenera, and I'm going to skip a few things, but essentially Clenera, we are a utility scale solar and battery developer. So we are across the country. We are developing solar projects, renewable energy projects that are also paired with energy storage. We have a significant presence in the state of Arizona. Actually, our company was founded in Arizona, down in Tempe, and then in 2015, we moved up to Idaho, where our two founders actually grew up. But we were founded down in Tempe, where they had run a manufacturing facility before that, based in the Mesa, kind of East Valley of Phoenix. Really, what's unique about Clenera is we are an independent power provider, and so what that means is we build projects and then we own them. So we will build a solar project, and then we will go through the process of developing that project. Really, development of a project has kind of 4 major milestones, or 4 major functional areas. Well, we will get site control. We'll work with a willing landowner that will sign an option to where we can have the ability to put a project on their land. We will go through the transmission interconnection process, and here that would be with APS. And so we will actually make an application to put our power that we are producing on the transmission system. And then we will go through the appropriate permitting measures and cultural studies and all the studies that we will need to go through to actually permit our project. And that's being done right now, one, as part of this process, but then two, also with the county, since our project actually exists outside of the city boundaries. And then four, we also will engage with, on the commercial side, a utility. You know, we will sell our power to APS or to SRP or to one of the major power providers, and then they will take that power and they will distribute it to, well, to you and to everyone here and to the people all across Arizona, wherever there are needs within their service territory. And so that's really our business model, is we will build these projects, and then we will also raise our capital and finance our projects. And as we go through it, you'll see these projects are fairly capital intensive. And so we will hold and own these projects, and we will operate them for the life of the project. And so we really are very keen and very purposeful about the relationships that we make with the stakeholders in the areas where we have projects. That's the county, that's the city, that's the fire department, that's the police department, because we intend to be long-term partners on all of these projects that we own. So, a lot of words, and I didn't probably follow those words very much, but talking a little bit about the stakeholder, and we really do view this as a relationship and a very long-term partnership between the communities that we work in, the utilities that we work with, the landowners that we are actually engaging with. Sometimes we will buy the land and sometimes we will lease the land from them. And then also the technologies that we use, our vendors, our suppliers, all that kind of comes together, and really it's one big partnership with the key components that make up these projects. All right. I'm gonna go to current operational projects. So right now, Clenera, we manage about 1,800 megawatts of projects across the country. And to give you an idea, because not everybody can see things in megawatts or kilowatts, a lot of times people see it in acres. So 1,800 megawatts is roughly 15,000 acres of land covered in solar panels. So that's the give or take, and so that 1,800 megawatts is across the country. But specifically in Arizona, we actually have some significant development projects. So they are not built yet, but they are ones that we have 3 out of the 4 or 4 out of the 4 major components completed to build a project. You know, a project at its infancy is sometimes nothing more than, okay, we have a land option, but the projects that we have in Arizona are very far advanced, and they are actually contracted with utilities. So we have 2 projects down in Cochise County, down near Fort Huachuca, and those are 2 80 megawatt facilities. We have 2 more 80 megawatt facilities that are contracted with APS, and those are in Coconino County, up kind of northwest of Flagstaff. And we also have a 400 megawatt facility contracted with SRP, and all of these projects are contracted to sell the energy to these different utilities. So TEP, APS, and SRP. All right. So
I'm sorry, can I stop you for
Yeah,
just a second?
please.
So you said 1,800 megawatts. There's how much land and solar?
About I think I said, was it about 15,000? And the reason why I'm a little bit of an estimate there is our earlier projects took up more land than they do today. Over the past 6 to 8 years, the build out of panels has become more efficient, and so we need less and less land. And also, when a project is in a nice big square, we're very efficient with our acreage. When it's kind of jumbled and there's maybe a wetland in between it, or there's trees, or there's some things that we can't build around, then it becomes a little bit less efficient, and so we use a little bit more land. But that's a rough estimate. The projects that we have in the state of Arizona right now total about 3,500 to 4,000 megawatts. That's where we are developing projects. Sorry, was that for me or someone else?
Did you get transient some more water, please, Ted?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
And you can interrupt me, Councilor Marsh,
I-
anytime.
I just took her water to give to the visitors, so.
Oh,
That wasn't very nice.
I'm all about being interrupted, so if there are any questions or like, please just let me know.
Well, you said you had 2 kids, so.
I'm very used to being interrupted. So, and the reason why I discuss a little bit about our pipeline in Arizona is because we are very heavily invested in this state, and we've done a lot of work, not only with the different counties that we are currently developing projects in, but also with the Arizona Corporation Commission, with the local utilities. You know, I've spent a good portion of my last 4 years in the beautiful state of Arizona, and it's been very enjoyable, and we will continue to be invested in this state. So that's a little bit of background. So specifically, let's talk more about our project here in the Holbrook area. So the name of the project is the Snowflake Solar Project. We actually at the beginning intended it to be in a different location. That is where the name came from. It has moved a couple of times, and now we have finalized, and we are very finalized on our location. So it is a couple miles north of Holbrook, with a very large landowner in that area, and it is 1,000 megawatts. So 1,000 megawatts is a very large solar project. It's roughly 7,000 acres is the land that we have under site control. Why that's important is because, you know, you may have heard there's a lot of, you know, there was a gas plant down in Phoenix that was not approved. There's been a lot of different, a transition, I guess, if you will, in the overall generation of energy and capacity and how that is done in the marketplace. And so these projects are going to be more and more important to ensure that there's affordable and quality energy to really operate everything that we do. And also done at a very economic level. When we get to projects of this size, we can do it at a rate that is basically the most economical rate that is able to be produced in the marketplace. And so when we initially put in our interconnection request, which was back in 2018, and so we've actually actively been working on this project since 2018. We've been working through the interconnection process with EPS, because they are the transmission owner, and we've been working with our landowner and slowly developing and making sure that we were making the appropriate decisions for this project. One of those decisions was making sure that we had access from where our project is to where we are connecting to the grid. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with the Cholla coal plant that is west of town. And so that is the intended location of where we will be connecting this project from where it's generating, which is north of Holbrook, down to the Cholla coal plant, where they have a large substation which can accommodate this much power going onto it. Questions, thoughts before we keep going? I don't want to monologue too much.
Are you buying or leasing from Bill Jeffers?
The intended, so our current agreement is a purchase option. There has been conversation about the potential for a lease, but our current agreement is for a purchase option.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And have you got any further with the county permitting, or you're still in the process with?
We are still in the process of that. One of the things we like to have is we like to ensure that we have our transmission route pretty much secured, or at least pretty secured far along in that path, because when we go to permit on that side, they also want to see, like, how real is this project? And so we like to be able to build our case on the maturity of the development of this project.
Okay, and one other question, obviously you guys have put quite a few of these plants together. What are you projecting as a timeline on this?
Yes. So we are projecting that at least the first phase of this project will be online by the end of 25. There are some reasons, there are some federal benefits for that will go away at the end of the 2025 year, and so we're very much pushing for this project to be online by the end of 25. Also, when you submit your request for interconnection, you only have so long between that submittal for interconnection and when the project has to come online. So we are very much pushing that this will be an end of 25 project. And what that means is it may not be the full 1,000 megawatts, it may be 500 megawatts of the 1,000. And so we would expect that this will be built out in 2 phases. And there are a couple of benefits when we build it out in phases to the city. What that does is it elongates our construction process. And so you may have 200 to 300 workers that are going to be here instead of 18 months, they'll be here for 3 to 4 years. And so the benefit to the city will be those workers will be eating at your restaurants, they will be staying at your hotels, they will be going to your hardware stores for a longer period of time rather than just kind of a short burst. The benefit on our side for doing it in stages is many utilities at this point they want to have geographic diversity, and so also they want to have timing diversity. To have a whole 1,000 megawatts come in at one time is more stressful and it puts more pressure on their resource management team. And so for us to build it out in phases where it's 500 in 2025 and then another 500 in either 26 or 27, it will be our highest probability of how we move forward on construction. And so with an end of 25 COD or commercial operation date, what that means is we would be starting construction sometime in middle of 23. Actually, excuse me, that's incorrect. Sometime in 24. So it would be sometime in early to middle of 24. Now with this project, I do want to be very clear. So we are very far along in 3 out of the 4 areas that we need for a project. We have our site control. We are, as soon as we get through, if we have a positive response from the city on the access to the point of interconnection, we would complete that. We will soon, in 2022, we will be done with our permitting. Our interconnection process is complete. We have a large generator interconnection agreement that is in front of us from APS for us to be able to interconnect our project into the grid. The last piece is a commercial agreement. So we do not yet have a commercial agreement with a utility to sell the energy. That is what our focus will be on this year. Our focus this year is to be able to contract that agreement, and that will be a key factor for us in moving forward with the project. We have to have the ability to sell our power. And so I just always want to make sure that I'm being very clear on where we are with the project in those 4 years. 3 are very far along, and we've had many conversations with different utilities on the commercial contract, but we are not complete with that portion yet. Any questions or any other?
Can you show us a map?
Yes. Certainly can. I'm going the wrong way. All right. So as you can see to the north, so that is our project where the actual panels would be located to the north. And so what we are doing and suggesting here
So
is
the
that
gray area.
I'm sorry? Yes, right here. This gray area right here. And so we will be connecting this area to the Choya substation via a transmission line that we will build out. And the portion of that transmission line right here is the portion that we are discussing today that is owned by the city of Holbrook. And so we've already had agreement on the private residences or the private land that we would be going through. And then the last portion of the generation, the transmission line would be actually owned, APS owned land. And so we would be working directly with APS on that portion of it. And so to zoom in, I actually want to zoom just a little bit. The portion that we are discussing with the city of Holbrook is this portion here. And so that's just a little bit of a zoomed in shot so you can see what we're actually talking about as far as that portion of land and the parcels that we have indicated that where we would like to obtain an easement for this transmission line.
So that's the freeway right there, right?
This is the
That's
freeway
in
right here,
town?
yes. Yeah, so we would cross over the freeway, that is correct.
So that's where the sewage treatment center is? Right there?
You will know better than me on that one. Okay. All right. I've tried to, actually I was looking at a map and trying to kind of see all the other things around it to get a point of reference here, but I did not look at the sewage treatment. So any other questions on the map?
Oh, I had a question on some of the, you'll have to go back, but 35-year
Yeah,
lifeline, is that the lifetime of the photovoltaic cells?
Yes.
And do you reinvest in those as they come offline? Why is it 35 and not
50 or
yeah.
30 or 10? That's a great question. So the plants that we build, they have a project lifespan of 35 years. Not every component will last 35 years, but the major ones will. So for instance, when you build a solar project, there are several major components. One is the steel that you put in the ground. So we actually, what's really been nice about a solar project is it doesn't change the landscape like, well, you put in a shopping mall, right? You put in a shopping mall, that's pretty much what it's gonna be. But with a solar project, how we build a solar project is you actually take large steel piers and you drive them into the ground. And so there's no foundation, there's no concrete. That pier is your foundation. So it goes about 6 to 8 feet down into the ground. And on top of that pier, you will have a metal rack. And that metal rack will have a motor that's associated that allows it to move with the sun. And then on top of the racking, you will then have your panels. And of course you have your wiring and everything else, but all of those components are rated for 35 years. Some of them break down, but you fix them. Now, the other pieces that we'll have is we will have an inverter. The inverter will take, I mean, just like my laptop piece that's plugged in right there, it's taking it from DC power to AC power, or vice versa. And our inverters will take it from DC power, which is what's generated at the solar panel, and will convert it or invert it into AC power, which is what the grid and the transmission system works off of. The inverters will typically be replaced 1 to 2 times during those 35 years. That's the kind of what I would call the weakest link, because that's the piece that's actually doing something. The panels, they pretty much just sit there. They sit there and they produce electricity. The other components are a medium voltage transformer and the substation, and those are typically also rated for 35 years. We will replace some medium voltage transformers, but for the most part, the inverters are going to be most of the equipment that we're replacing over the 35 years.
Is any storage connected with this?
There will be storage associated with it as well. And that does not have a 35-year lifespan. The current models for battery storage at this point is a 20-year lifespan. There are some that are going out to 25, but at this point, it'll be 20 or 25 depending on what year this project is built. If it does get moved forward a little bit, it would be a 20-year lifespan. At 2025, it would have a 25-year
How
lifespan.
many megawatts of storage would be involved?
It would be equal to the solar.
Okay.
So we would have 1,000 megawatts of solar and 1,000 megawatts of battery.
That's great.
And that is what the utilities at this point are really interested in, because, you know, solar's, you know, I obviously work for a solar company. It's great, but also there's limitations. The sun doesn't shine in the middle of the night, doesn't shine in the morning, doesn't shine at night, doesn't shine when the clouds are coming over. And so the adding of a battery, and as battery prices have come down, the combination of both technologies together allow for a solar plus storage project to have a more dispatchable resource that will give the utilities the flexibility that they need to really serve their customers, especially in those summer months. And that's really the key component for utilities in the state of Arizona. Any other questions? I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into the actual request on the easement, if that's okay.
What are these batteries? What are they made of?
Yep, so they're a lithium ion battery, and there are many different chemistries of lithium ion batteries. The type of batteries that we are looking is called an LFP, or a lithium phosphate battery. And the reason why we are very particular about the type of battery is I'm sure that you probably heard about the fire that was associated with the APS battery 2 or 3 years ago. I remember that because the day after that, I was at the Arizona Corporation Commission in Arizona for a meeting, and I will tell you that was a very big deal. And so that fire was actually a different chemistry of battery. It was lithium ion, but it was a NMC or nickel manganese, I think is the correct. I may be off on that. But the different chemistries of battery are very important. NMC is much more energy dense, And so that was the battery of choice up until about 2 years ago, but it had a thermal runaway issue, fire. And it only takes a couple of fires before that energy density becomes not as important. And actually NMC batteries are what are have been typically used in cars. Because then you need your battery to be small so you can put it in a car and you get more power. And they would have very sophisticated controls to keep the thermal runaway in check.
They've also all been redesigned since then. Because of that fire, the whole industry changed.
Yep.
And so they're a lot safer now than they were.
And for the most part, utility scale batteries are all going to be LFP. That chemistry does not have the same thermal runaway issues that the NMC batteries have, and that's been extremely important as we've been building out our portfolio. We do not do we have no projects that we have intended NMC batteries on them. Any other questions on the battery or anything else?
So for 1,000 megawatts, how much room does those batteries take up?
A lot less than solar. We were intending to have, let's see here, we were intending to have 200 megawatts on about 7 acres. So we're talking probably 20, 30 acres. So it would be within the footprint. Go back up to it. It would be within that footprint. We would not be expanding beyond the footprint of what we already have agreements on.
Okay. And you, I noticed in your presentation here, and some of us have talked about the useful life of 35 years, but you mentioned life of the project. Are those two different things?
So we make our contractual agreements. Oftentimes we will lease land, and so we try to tie our agreements to the lifespan of the project. And so that's why we have a 35-year life. Now, I would be very hopeful, now in 35 years, that we would be re-energizing this project, because certain things do not go away. One thing that will not go away is our right to interconnect electricity or power at the Choice substation. That will not go away in 35 years. That will still be there. And so typically what we have found is we would love to have the conversation in 35 years that we would renew this easement, that it would be renewed. But we also understand that there has to be certain limitations from you or any other party that they'd like to have that conversation in 35 years and have the ability to determine, is that the best path for them to go forward. And so that is why we don't ask for a easement in perpetuity. We ask for an easement that is consistent with our expected lifespan of the project.
So you're asking for the easement for 35 years?
That is correct.
Okay. And then
We'll all be dead but Adam.
the solar panels and the batteries that you use, where are they made?
Yep, so they're made in a lot of different places. And if you had asked me that question 2 months ago, I would have said 85% of the solar panels that we use in the US market come from Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, and Vietnam. No, Thailand. However, about 6 weeks ago, there was a Department of Commerce tariff application that was placed, and so right now the solar industry is in a bit of a flummox. And so right now, those 4 countries are looking at having anti-dumping tariffs associated with them. So we don't actually know what the price is going to be for panels coming out of those 4 countries. And so right now, the manufacturing capacity is expected that it will move out of those 4 countries. Some of it will probably move to India. Some of it will probably move to Turkey. Some of it will move to Mexico. There are also, we are looking at hopefully some of that manufacturing coming to the US. There is another bill that's being put in front of Congress where they are looking to provide, I can't remember the exact bill, so I'm not gonna quote it, but they are looking to try and provide more, what's the right word? Incentives for actually American-made manufacturing of these types of components.
So how many of your components currently are made in communist China?
Right now, none of them, because there are many tariffs associated with between China and the U.S. as far as these types of equipment. Now, the ones coming out of Southeast Asia, many of them are operated by Chinese companies, but that will change, especially with the latest tariffs that have been associated with those 4 countries. And so right now, we are looking at most of our manufacturing for solar panels will be coming out of India.
Now, just one question, if you wanna pop through your slides to the transmission line structures.
Yes. Yes.
My curiosity, what type would be used in this?
That's a great question. It would be the 500 kV. So this is a 500 kV system. And what I mean by that is, so when you see the lines that are coming, when I drove into Holbrook coming south from Phoenix, I passed over those lines coming in.
Right.
Those are 500 kV lines. The reason that we will have 500 kV transmission line is because where we are interconnecting, it will be at 500 kV. And so we will actually have a project substation. Go back up to here. So we'll have our project, and it will all operate, and we'll go from a medium voltage, which is 34.5, and then we will have a project substation probably right here. That's what that is. And so we will have a substation that we will take this medium voltage power and we will ramp it up to 500 kV, so that way it will be, when we get it to the point of interconnection, at the same voltage. And the reason why we would do that is because at the higher voltage level, and the reason why when you see longer lines, it's because the losses that are associated with electricity when you move at a higher voltage are diminished. If we were to go from, if we were to try to move 1,000 megawatts from here to here, one, it would take multiple lines because you just can't do that at a 34.5. You would also have a high amount of losses.
Okay, I want to make more sense though to go more direct to Choya through 18 North, 20 East.
We would love
the
that.
northern part of that. Who owns that property?
Yeah, we would love that. So we have not, we have looked at about 4 different routes. And for us, the more direct the better. Because to build a 500 kV line costs anywhere between $1.5 to $2 million a mile. So yeah, if we could shave off 3 to 4 miles, we would be very happy about that. There have been some limitations both from, some of the land is state owned, some of the land is federally owned. And so this has been the route where we have been able to have all of the parties that we have discussed and had conversations with. They have been amenable and they have been interested in actually signing a easement with us to be able to run our transmission line over this land. And there also have been other environmental concerns as we've been looking to make sure that we're taking the most environmentally appropriate route as well.
So how many miles of line is that?
It's about 12, I believe.
Okay.
But our easement's only 2.13.
That is correct. That is correct. But the total line is about 12 miles. Like I said, I would love it if our project was right next to the substation, but that's not how it turned out. So if we can, maybe it's a good moment to actually talk about what the actual easement would be with the city of Holbrook. So it's 2.13 miles, but then also the easement width would be 200 feet at the center. And so what we've really looked at is okay, how do we deal with this where it's an easement and there's still access to the land, but we also are needing to have this easement. And so what we tried to look at is, look at it at a per acre basis as if we were going to buy that land. And so that's where we get the approximately, I think it was it's 52 acres. And then you take the 52 acres at a $3,000 per acre, and that's where we have the $156,000 is what we would be paying for the rights to that easement for the 35 years. And so with that roughly 2.13 miles, you would see 8 to 10 poles or 8 to 10 structures that would be supporting this transmission line.
Now, if I'm looking at that map correct, it'll kind of go between the Petroglyph Park and the golf course, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and that is one of the things that we have looked at, in fact, right here. So we've looked at, so as the line comes down, we don't have the line on here, but we kind of show the approximate distance from the Petroglyph Park as well as the golf course. And one of the items that we've been very aware of is the visual significance of this. And so we've looked at, we would be designing this, and so we have some latitude on to where we put this, It doesn't have to be at this specific point. We just have to be able to get it from point A to point B. And so we would be very aware and be working with the city to ensure that it could be as visually insignificant from those two important areas. And when you have kind of the dip and the wash, you can build things in such a way that they are less seen or less visible. And that is something that we'd be very happy to work with the city on, is to try and keep that as minimally invasive as possible. So
have you, and I'm assuming that you've been out to the Petroglyph Park and the golf course?
My team has, yes.
Okay.
So I personally have not, but the team has spent some time out there walking through there, also with Jeffers on his land and kind of going this whole route. Unfortunately, the gentleman who has done most of the work on this was not able to make it today, but he has spent some time out there, yes.
Because from both of those locations, I'm not sure if you can put these towers in any position where they are less visible.
Yeah, and that is what we will be working through. One of the things that I haven't discussed yet, I do think it's important, is typically how these will work is we would have an option. There are still certain milestones we have to meet before we will start construction. One, we have to get our commercial agreement with a utility. Two, we have to finish up our permitting. And so how we typically go about this is we will sign a option, and then that option will have an associated payment and also a term. I believe that, I can't remember the exact year, but yep, 3 years is what we'll be looking for on this option. And if we do not exercise the option within those 3 years, then it terminates. I would expect that it would be before the 3-year period as to when we would be exercising this option. Because, yes.
It does say though with the possibility of 4 extensions,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it would not go away, it would still, if it was granted.
Yep. That is our proposal. Yes. So that would be something that we would like. Now, have we taken less than than 4 additional years extensions? Yes, we have. So, I think that is something that if you looked at that and you said for us to be locked in for 7 years is not comfortable, it does not allow us to make that decision, I think we would be amenable to looking at different options. All right. Any other questions about the I guess the request, the easement, the specific nature on what this would be for the land that is owned by the city of Holbrook?
So I think you're gonna get to it eventually, but I'm less concerned visually than I am for the natural cultural resources out there. And so I'm very much wanting our resources to be assessed and avoided when possible.
So, great question. And so one of the things that we do as part of these projects is we actually go through and do cultural studies. And so it's something that's required, even if we're not doing it on federal land or state land, which they do require it. Our investors, how we finance these projects is a little bit interesting. We will put a lot of our own capital into the project, but then we will also finance them with a bank. And both from what I will call construction and long-term debt, but also what's called tax equity. And so when banks are investing in 700, 800, this project and the capital costs that we've put in here of just the solar, they actually don't include the battery, and it's roughly the same. And so I think the numbers we have in here is around 780 or 800 million. With a battery, that would actually double. So it'd be more around 1.6 billion. And so when we are looking to finance over $1 billion, there is a very fine tooth comb that goes over all of the aspects of the project. And so one of those is cultural. So we will go through, we'll do an ESA, we will go through and we will do a cultural study, we'll do an endangered species study, we will do a wetlands delineations, we will go through and do all of those studies because it's required not only by the federal pieces, but also by our investors.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, that would be a part, especially on any of the pieces that we're doing on the Gentai, because that'll also be required. Because one of the things that we will have to do is called a CEC permit. So we will have to go to the state, to the Arizona Corporation Commission, and we will have to get a permit for this Gentai. For any transmission, I think it's greater than 3 poles and greater than 115 kV, you have to go to the state to receive approval, and that is part of their rules as well.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the types of studies that we'd be doing?
Just a word of advice, if you want us to pass on this, you need to change the name to Holbrook instead of Snowflake.
You know, that's a really, there is no reason why we couldn't do that.
It's just
I get it.
high school rivalry.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. There were a couple things I wanted to talk through also. Actually, yeah. I mean, obviously we've talked a little bit about the financial benefits. There are environmental benefits that from a project like this, as far as the renewable and clean aspects of the production. We like to focus, especially in these type of settings, really on the economic benefits, to where looking at, what does 300 workers coming from all over the state of Arizona look like for the city of Holbrook, and we're talking for 3 to 4 years.
And you only need a couple of people to run that though, right?
Yeah, so we were expecting probably about 10.
10 people.
10, because it is a large project. If it was a smaller, like 100 or 200 megawatt, it'd probably be more like 2 to 3. Now the 10 people that we would be expecting that's more like full-time staff. There are more jobs that would be associated. You're going to have your contractors, the fencing contractors that will come in and fix fencing. There will be veg management that will be going in and, things don't grow too much here, but they will be going in and clearing weeds or certain areas of the project. Or I don't know if you get it like we do in Idaho. We have a project near Boise, and for us, the biggest thing that we have to combat, tumbleweeds. We have our fence, and the tumbleweeds will just hit that fence. And so every about 6 to 12 months, we go in and we clear out the tumbleweeds.
How often would you have to clean the glass on these?
Yeah, it's funny
is that
because
a contractor or is that somebody?
It's contractor. Yeah, we would contract that. But what's interesting about that is you would think that it's dusty, and you would think you might have to clean it a lot more. But we don't. We don't clean it all that often. We model it out. So what we do is actually there's something called soiling. And so soiling is something that we can monitor and engineer to determine if a panel is dirty, you do get not quite as much energy as would be produced if it wasn't dirty. And so we will actually go through and compute the cost of cleaning and then how much energy we're producing and what the losses are revenue-wise, and we will actually do a financial analysis to determine whether or not we should clean. And for the most part, the only areas that we've really cleaned have been in the Central Valley, California. And that's because there's so much agriculture and there's a lot of dirt roads that those trucks just throw up dust. What we found is here, you get one good rain, those panels are clean. And then, largely they're not in high traffic areas, and so they're not getting a lot of road dust. And then comes through, rain, cleans them off, even if it's once every couple months.
That's a little ambitious for us.
I know. Even if it's once a year. Hopefully not once a year.
No.
So this easement will be not only for the transmission lines and towers, but for ingress and egress to the project?
I believe we would also want to have ability to access the line if there does need to be work that's done on the transmission line. That is correct.
But as far as your crews that go to the project?
No, that would not be necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally, it would just be to access the line itself. Our access to the project will be separate.
What is your alternative?
The alternative
If we don't approve the
Yep.
sale of the easement, what's your alternative?
So we have had a different path. This is our top. We like this one the best. It's the short. It's actually not the shortest, but it's the most environmentally sound. There is another path that we have looked at. It's a longer process because it would be going over federal land. And I don't know if you've ever worked with the BLM, but that process takes a significantly longer time. And there are different aspects of the project that we would have to go through.
And you're going through BLM land anyways, right?
I do not believe we are.
No.
None of this?
Yeah, none of this goes through BLM.
Is it strictly Bill Jeffers and
Private owners.
Private owners, yep. Private owners, the city of Holbrook, and APS.
No state lease land in there.
No state land.
APS will be happy to work with you, because they're shutting down that facility, and we'll be just as pleased as punch to work with you.
That was our plan. That was our plan. Now, I never want to provide like a guarantee. I mean, because it's a very competitive business, and we are doing absolutely our best to ensure we have a very competitive product, and we believe that the interconnection that we have, when you submit for an application for interconnection, essentially what happens is you will get results of a study that the utility will provide that shows how much money it will cost the project to interconnect your project. And sometimes that it's called network upgrades. And sometimes the network upgrades costs can be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that will create a project that's unviable. We have a favorable interconnection. It's at a good rate. It's a very large interconnection, and because of that, we can share that favorable economic impact across a large project, and therefore we really believe that we have a competitive project. And we will find out. We know that APS at some point this year will having an all-source RFP, and we intend to participate, and we think that we will do very well. But we will only know that when we get the results.
I've got one.
Yes?
With the 8 to 10 permanent, what is the educational or technical expertise requirement for them positions? Are they, you're looking for somebody went to a technical school on solar or whatever?
Yeah.
What, are we talking bringing in professors like Dr. Adams here? Or are we something that these permanent employees can go to a local community and get a technical experience of this?
Yep. So typically our project, in a project of this size, we would have several journeyman electricians. So you do have a lot of the folks will have some electrical training. So you'd have several journeyman electricians. You'd probably have an apprentice that would be working with him, and you would probably have several what I will call more laborers. Folks that are working with the electrician that would be trained at a more technical level, and the other aspects of that are going to be more laborers, like I said, fencing fixes or the security cameras that are there. I mean, just the different things that we would have.
Wow.
But it's typically, and I'm used to most of our currently built projects are more 100, 200 megawatts, and it's usually more of a journeyman electrician with several technicians that are assisting with them.
So are they union scale?
It depends on the project. We have some of our projects that have union labor and some of them that do not.
So Arizona's a right-to-work state. But for example, SRP and APS, they're all union. I was just wondering.
Yeah, for the most part, in right-to-work states and non-union states, the workers that are our facilities are typically not union. That's what I would say is more common.
But comparably paid.
Yep. And oftentimes what we will also have is the folks may not be employed directly by Clenera or even by the project. It would be with a third party. Some of the parties that are out there, like a Solve or a Miller Brothers, they're called operations and maintenance, and they're really kind of what we would call the more boots on the ground folks. They're the folks, like for instance, for me to go to one of my facilities, I actually just can't go. I actually have to go with one of our third-party O&M or contractors, that they are the ones that are physically there and follow all the NERC and FERC guidelines that are required for even myself to go onto one of our projects.
So realistically, when it says, as well as many locally sourced construction jobs, you're gonna bring in your own people. And
Yep,
those construction companies are gonna bring in their own people, not hire locally necessarily.
So how that typically works is there's a certain portion. You typically will have a management group that will run, and so what they will do is they will absolutely hire local, because to bring in 300 workers where they are now being housed in an area is extremely expensive. And so the goal is to hire as much local labor as the local labor market will support. That's the first goal. And so typically what will happen is these companies, and so the company that we will contract with, think of it like a general contractor. We call them an EPC, or an engineering and procurement electrical contractor. And so they will come in and they will have a job fair. They'll say, hey, we need this many workers. And so they'll come in, they'll train, and because of the size of this project, you're looking at somewhere, 3 to 4 years is really what I would expect a 1,000 megawatt project, the duration to take. But they will absolutely hire as much local labor as possible. And then if there's not the appropriate labor, or there's just not enough, then they'll go outwards. And so then you would go to the surrounding towns, and then you would go to Payson, or you'd go north, or you'd go south as really, you're gonna try and hire as much local labor as possible. What I've actually found, and sorry to keep going, I've actually found that when someone is hired into one of these companies, they may live and work in Holbrook for 3 years, but once they're done, they will actually have a marketable skill. And they will actually sometimes go on to some of the traveling squads that do travel. And so they may actually stay here and live here in Holbrook, but then they may work on different solar projects across the state. They may find themselves working at our other 1,000 megawatt project over in Coconino County. But that is something that we've seen as we've built these projects out.
Does anybody else have any questions for him? Okay.
Great presentation.
Yeah,
Jared, thank you. What I'd like to do at this point in time is, give you the opportunity to work with the city manager and our city attorneys, with a, some type of viable agreement that we can look at. And
Absolutely. We would love to do that.
In the meantime, we'll
Look
go
forward
through
to
this
it.
a little more.
And
I'm sorry?
And change the name.
And meantime, change the name.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, we'll do a little more looking at it too.
All right.
Do you have contact info that you can leave with?
I do. Let me grab some of my cards.
This is, yeah, we've got all that. Okay, we do NEPA and all this. Yeah.
Question.
We can also get it from the city manager.
Oh, it's so fun to give out cards. It's been so long. I haven't seen anybody in person.
I don't see why you don't want to do an environmental impact statement.
Oh, gosh. Have you done one?
I work for the NPS.
Okay, you have.
Very good, thank you.
Oh, look at that. I have just enough cards.
Thank you.
The last one. And so just to be 100% transparent, so I'm the vice president of business development. I actually don't work what I will call neck deep in any of our projects. I used to, but so we will have a project team, and we do have a project team associated with this. So as we work forward, you may not be working directly with me, you'll be working with one of our team members, but they are all extremely capable, and they will actually have more detailed information on our projects than I will, specifically on the Holbrook solar project.
anybody else have any other questions for him?
How long will it take you to get the name changed?
I think you got the message. I got the message.
Jared, thank you for the presentation. We look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. and,
Absolutely.
Thanks,
See,
Jared.
Yeah,
see where
thank
it
you.
goes.
Thank you, Jared.
All right.
Awesome.
Have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
I know that Lane sent me your information, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sure we're fine.
All right.
Okay, moving on to item 8, summary of current events. Guess it's my turn, I believe the 18th, 19th of this month, Run for the Wall.
I think so. I saw that on Facebook.
Supposed to be on there.
Should-
Yes, it's on the 19th.
And they will be having a luncheon over at the American Legion.
That's correct.
Anybody that would like to go and show your support, of course, it was shut down last year and the year before, basically because of COVID. This year, they're back in full swing, they're expecting more riders than, from those that I've talked to, they're expecting more riders this year than they've had
Yep.
in the past. So that would be something, be nice to see some of the council members there. Also, thank all of you for your participation in today's luncheon. I think it was a very, very good success. We had probably 75%, 75, 80%
I think
of
pretty
the,
much everyone tried to show up that could show
you
up.
know, those that could, those that weren't, you know, different situations, but I don't think we missed very many, and, I mean, that was 20 pounds of pulled pork that I cooked and 13 racks of ribs, and there wasn't a whole lot left over. So
Well, you
everybody,
shouldn't make them so good.
if anybody went home, huh,
I missed the pulled pork.
there might still be some, I don't know, unless Ted,
I don't think so.
Yeah. Cake, lots of cake, right?
There's cake left, yes, you can have some cake.
other than that, am I missing anything?
That's good. Go get it next time.
Oh, Navajo County, I don't know if you guys noticed, but they had the junior high and the high school rodeo over at the fairgrounds this weekend.
Very well
There
done.
was very little room over there. I mean, it was very well attended, so thank you Navajo County Fair Board for putting that on. Other than that, I don't have anything. Vice Mayor Payne.
I attended the Holbrook School Board meeting Tuesday evening, and they held it in the auditorium this time because they have an awards dinner and everything else, and an athletic dinner, but they had special recognition for the board from the kids from Park up to the high school for different things that they excelled in competitions, whether it was music, essays, art, and most of it was the first and second place winners. There were a lot of families there, and those kids were proud as punch to go up there and get their new t-shirts. And I was just really happy with what they did to recognize the kids. They do a great job of recognizing the kids, but I had never attended this one. And they had a number of items on their agenda, but most of it was end of the year housekeeping, and they did have to do the same thing that we did on, they bumped some salaries because of minimum wage and then other considerations, so.
Sure.
And then also, I'm sure everybody already knows, but the junior high promotion is next Thursday night, or Thursday afternoon, and the high school graduation will be Friday evening. And Kip sent us a page today saying that they had the Cardinals camp, and that was one thing that they announced. They were pretty excited about that. And they also received a $5,000 grant from the Dairy Council. Dairy Council has been very, very supportive of Holbrook, and I believe this time they didn't even have to apply for it, if I heard that right. One or the other, they didn't have to apply for, so. It seemed like the Cardinals camp was gonna be a little different than what they've done and give them even more interaction with
some of the players, so. They did a pretty good job of taking opportunities that are available, and I salute them for that.
Is that it for you, Francie?
That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Dixon?
I don't have anything there, thank you.
Councilman Moore?
I don't either.
I'm good, thanks.
Councilman Wolford?
Yeah, so, let's see, at the beginning of the month, I attended, but I helped cook, actually. They had the chamber annual Man of the Year, Woman of the Year, Business of the Year. Pretty good turnout for that. That was pretty nice. And then also the Elks did their annual youth banquet and gave out the scholarships. I know the Elks themselves, I believe, gave out 11 $300 scholarships to students. So, and again, all that money from just community drives and stuff that the Elks puts on to support, so kudos to the Elks. And then, the high school junior rodeo, that was a big event. All the hotels booked this weekend. My
I
place
would
was
like to
booked.
go in the gas station.
Yes.
Seeing those big diesels pulling all those big trailers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Amazing, some of those rigs.
They're fair board. They're doing it every weekend. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice seeing the traffic, but sometimes get stuck at a stop sign for 3 minutes. I'll get 3 minutes, but that's a long time when it's stopped. Right?
It's a long time for
Yeah.
but it's nice to have that change a little bit.
Right. And then kudos to the Cardinals. I did go up there today. I can't believe we had that many students in junior high, and that was only a percentage of the selectees that were picked to attend this camp. And they had different venues set up for all these kids. The interaction between the high school football players were helping coordinate these different venues with these. So a lot of mentoring going on. It was amazing. Yeah, so got some cool pictures of it and stuff, so.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Wolford.
Thank you for all you did today with that cooking for our
Yeah.
employees.
You bet.
I thought that was great. And the only thing I'd like to see more of is this fairgrounds is putting on a lot of events, but I don't see enough advertising. I would like to see more advertising. I don't know if the chamber can do something, but we need to have more advertising for 51 weekends this year. They're having events there.
I think that, just a sad thing, good thing, bad thing in our day and age, a lot of people rely so much on social media, so a lot of your organizations aren't going out, putting up posters, putting up banners, they flood social media with it, so I really don't see a lot of the stuff around.
I made a decision that I'm going to put two or three posts at my shop against a wall, and they can put banners on that, so people driving this way can see them. That'd be great.
Thank you, Earl. City manager.
Sure, just real quick, budget, that's what I've been working on. But finally, I would just want to say thank you, council. You guys were very generous for Employee Appreciation Day. Ribs, pulled pork, macaroni salad, potato salad, a cake, and a variety of things. And I know you all did that because you appreciate, as I do, our employees. We really do have a good set of employees. They work very hard, and it was very kind and generous of you to provide what you did for the employees. I just want to say thank you on their behalf. That's all I had.
One last thing from me, Ted.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very, very well put together, easy to understand. I really like the direction that we're going financially with the city. Hopefully they give us a couple more years and we'll be able to start doing a lot more around here.
That's right. Very good.
I'm amazed at how much is getting done there.
Oh, it's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Thank you, Ted, for all you do.
You're welcome. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, Chair, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not mine.